All right, thanks folks. I'm turning on my timer so I don't talk for too long. But yes, I am Sam McElvie, and I work for a company called Mobile Commons, based here in New York out of Brooklyn. And basically, we have an online platform for sending out text messages, the mobile web, and generating phone calls, mostly advocacy phone calls. So at Mobile Commons, we work mostly with nonprofit clients on advocacy actions, on fundraising. We work with a lot of government organizations on education and behavior change. And we also have a few enterprise commercial clients thrown in there. But the bulk of what we do is with nonprofits and government agencies. So tonight, James and I will be talking about using text messaging to achieve your mission. And James and I have been working together for about 2 years on the Human Rights Campaign's text message program, working together to really make sure that HRC can utilize the Mobile Commons platform to accomplish its goals and meet all of its organizational objectives. So tonight, I'm just going to run through some really interesting trends that I've seen in the last year and some best practices for about 20 minutes or so. Please jump in with questions. Feel free to interrupt me at any time. We can be super conversational with this. And then James is going to talk specifically about some campaigns and big successes and big wins that HRC has had. So tonight we'll start by talking about why text messaging, why use SMS as part of your marketing or outreach endeavors. How many folks work with organizations that are already using text messaging? Cool. That's great to know. And a lot of organizations that I already work with are here tonight. So that's great to see. So why text messaging? Why SMS? We want to use SMS to get more people to take more action. Very simple. We want to build bigger lists of people who will actually do things. So with text messaging, we can usually expect about 5 to 10 times more opt-ins than other methods of getting people to sign up for something. And what I mean by that is if you have a PSA like this do something, text battle to 30644, or red light safety cams, text red to this number. If you have a call to action printed on printed materials, basically any call to action that you see, you have a few choices about the ways people can join. They can call a number, they can visit a URL, or they can text in. And so with text messaging, we typically see about 5 to 10 times more opt-ins than people who will call a number for more information or people who will actually visit a URL later. So the web is sort of a whole another story. Web signups are obviously very easy, and if people are already online, that's the best way to capture information. But if you have a PSA, if you have a bus ad, if you have printed collateral, having a text message call to action, text a keyword to a short code, is going to generate more opt-ins for you. And when you think about why, it's an app that's already downloaded on everyone's phone, the SMS app, they already have it. Everyone texts. It's a demographic, or it's a mode of communication that goes across all demographics. One of our biggest clients at Mobile Commons is AARP, believe it or not. So I do hear a lot of organizations say, well, we don't work with teenagers, so text messaging isn't going to work for us. Everybody texts, so it will. And I have my phone in my pocket right now, and I'm up here presenting. Everyone has their phone in their pockets all the time. So you're reaching them. When they're moved by your call to action, they have access, and very quick access, to give you their information so that you can recontact them and get them to take the action that you want them to take. All right, so first we're talking about getting more people. So one of my favorite case studies, and I'm sure some of you have heard these stats, I presented this at the NTC conference and then did a quick recap here for our group, and now I'm here presenting the full presentation, so some of you have heard these stats before, but they're very exciting. So the Shedd Aquarium a couple years ago had a contest. where they aired a call to action on television for people to join and participate in their contest. On 3 of the major networks, they had a phone number that people could, a URL that people could visit to join the contest. And on 1 of the major networks, they had a text call to action. And the text call to action generated 325% more opt-ins than the URL. Because you're reaching people with that device that they have with them all the time. So we're getting more people, and we're talking about higher action rates. This stat is from the Humane Society. So they A/B tested a group of users who are already multi-channel. They took folks who are already on their email and mobile list, and for their end-of-year fundraising campaign, they just sent an email to half the list, and to the other, they actually sent the email to the whole list, and then half of the list additionally got a text message just to remind them to check their email. So there's a very important email waiting for you in your inbox. Don't forget to check it. The folks who got the text message in addition to the email were 77% more likely to take action. So we are talking about action rates, but something I do want to highlight here is that text messaging can boost your action rates even on actions that aren't occurring through the text. So for this particular study, the action that they were asking people to do was donate online. They sent out an email with a donation ask. And they felt that that would be a better place for people to make the donation than on a mobile optimized form that they sent out as a link in the text message. So even though the action that they were asking people to take wasn't via text, the text got people to go online and take that action. And what this tells us is that not every action that we ask people to take are we going to ask them to take via text message. Not everything is appropriate to do on your phone or appropriate for 160 characters. But we can absolutely use SMS kickers to boost action rates. All right, so this is an example from OFA this last year with the election. So they got 1,500 volunteers to volunteer at the polls when they sent out a text message. People in Virginia were getting out of line when the polls closed. They didn't know that they could stay in line even though the polls were closed if they were already in line. OFA sent out a text to let people know they should absolutely stay in line, and they actually sent out a text to ask people if they would go volunteer to keep people in line. And if you notice with this text, volunteers are needed to make sure everyone who's still in line gets to vote. Reply with VA polls and an organizer will call you. That's also not an action. They're not just texting people to tell them, hey, go volunteer. They know that they need to get somebody on the phone to actually get these volunteers out there. So they're using SMS to actually get interested volunteers on the phone, and then they actually got 1,500 people to go out and volunteer to keep folks in line. This is another great example of getting people to take more action. So World Vision uses text messaging for their events, for their Team World Vision events. And Team World Vision is where people sign up to run marathons or do races and fundraise for World Vision as a part of that. So they use text messaging to both give people support in their training for the marathons and also to give them fundraising tips. And they found that the folks that were on the text messaging list, in addition to the email and social methods of reaching out, had significantly higher action rates and response rates at the race. So folks who are on the SMS list, I believe, were 25% more likely to cross the finish line and raise 50% more funds for the organization. So those are a couple examples of actions that we can get people to take. We can get people to make a call to get them somewhere to volunteer. We can get people to donate, or we can get people to check their email to donate. Via text, we can get people to register. We can send people reminders. We can get them to RSVP for events. We can get them to donate. We can chat with them via text message. We can send them links. The possibilities are really endless. It's sort of just thinking about, what are my organizational goals? What objectives get me there? Is it getting people to events? Is it getting petition signatures? Is it getting donations? and then how do we use text messaging to actually accomplish those objectives. And the way that we can do that is through two-way, engaging, and data-driven conversations via text message. So we can keep going for so a lot of times folks think of SMS as a very broadcast-only medium. But what I want to talk about tonight is how to have those successful conversations with folks. So it was no coincidence that OFA was easily able to get those 1,500 people to volunteer. They had a huge list that they texted all the time that was really primed and ready to take action. And that's why they had those big successes. So the way that we can do that, the way we can get those big lists and get folks primed and ready to take action is through these sort of winning mobile trends that I've seen over the last year or so that we'll go through tonight. So we'll talk about fully integrating our campaigns with all other forms of social media and email and marketing efforts that we have. We'll talk about how text messages can go viral. We'll talk about how to get to know your list and create that relationship with them so that they'll actually take action when you want them to. And then, just for fun, we'll talk about some click-to-call advocacy tools that we've seen have a lot of success over the last year. So we could also just basically call this presentation things that I think are really cool about text messaging. So first we'll talk about fully integrated campaigns. So these are some really great examples of acquisition through social media. Probably a year and a half ago, if you would have asked me, should I be putting keywords and short codes in status updates or tweets, I would say no. If people are already online, you're crazy. Just take them to a web form and get their email and get all their information and click a link and have them sign up right then. And what we've seen over the last year or so is that actually on social, the keyword and short code method of acquisition works better for mobile than getting people to click on a link and enter their phone number. So these are free tools that we can use to build our list all the time, whether or not we have a big campaign going on or not. Something that I want to highlight that's important with social is, for example, the CRS campaign, this Catholic Relief Services campaign, text Lent to 30644. Social is a really great place for us to sort of run sub-campaigns. So Catholic Relief Services is a relief organization that focuses on poverty issues in the developing world. But every year around Lent, they do have a large demographic of folks who are Catholic in their subscribers. So they do have a Lent campaign where people can actually subscribe. It's sort of a fun thing for their list, and they can get a meatless recipe texted to them on like Thursday of every week so that they can make it on Friday. So this is an example of a campaign where they know that not everybody on their list is Catholic and that not everybody in their list wants to participate in this campaign. But it's a fun way to acquire new members. It's a good sub-campaign that engages new folks and can bring people in via social media. They can also ask everybody who's on their current list, you know, their full list of subscribers, hey, we have a fun campaign going on for Lent where you can get meatless recipes texted to you. Text Lent to 30644 to be a part of it. And then they're both engaging people who are already on their list, and they're getting new people to sign up. So I always say the best mobile campaigns will grow your mobile list and they'll engage the folks who are already on your list. Basically everything you should be doing via text message should be doing both to grow the number of subscribers you have, but there should also be a way for those folks who are already on your list to participate, knowing full well that we can segment, you know, not everybody on the list is going to want to participate in this campaign. And social is a great place for that kind of acquisition. Integrating our calls to action to sign up for mobile on our websites. Again, this is where most mobile signups come from. Texting a keyword to a short code is more effective than having people visit a URL, and it's more effective than having people dial a phone number. But when you look at the percentage of people on your mobile list who come from a texted keyword or who come from signing up online, the majority of folks are going to come from online because that's always there. You know, it doesn't matter if you have an event. It doesn't matter if, you know, you have a big promotional time where you hand out collateral. Your website is always there and people are continually signing up without you having to do anything. So one of my biggest pieces of advice for those folks who are trying to grow their SMS list is always put a place for people to opt in on your website. It'll grow your list all the time and you don't even have to do anything. And a lot of providers, Mobile Commons included, will integrate with your CRM. So if signing up on this form puts people in Convio and they enter their mobile number, they'll also go into Mobile Commons. Or in Mobile Commons, if somebody texts in and then we say, great, thanks for signing up, what's your email address? And they reply with their email, they'll get put into Convio or Salesforce or Salsa or whatever you're using for your CRM. So integrating with our already existing tools. So we've talked about integrating with social, integrating with web for acquisition. We can talk about integrating with apps for our already existing campaigns. So like I mentioned with the mobile optimized donation form, we don't necessarily want all our actions to take place over text message. That's not always the right place for people to take action. Sometimes you want people to go to our app because it has a wealth of resources for people. But text messaging can be a very, very, very effective way to get people to download your app. So in this example, Food and Water Watch sent out a text asking people to download their Tap Buddy app. You click here, that link actually detects your phone's browser, so we take you to the correct app store, and then you can download the app right from the text without having to click on the App Store button, enter the name, try to remember the name, enter it and search for it, and click download. You can just click this link. And then another example of integrating with an app is Do Something's Picks for Pets campaign. So Do Something is one of the largest organizations that we work with at Mobile Commons. They have almost 2 million mobile subscribers. They work with teenagers. And they know this is how their demographic is communicating all the time. But they did want to run a campaign called Picks for Pets that utilized an app. And that's because this is actually a really cool campaign. The biggest reason why a lot of pets don't get adopted is because the shelter photos of them are really, really bad. The shelter people don't know how to take pictures, so they got teens to actually go volunteer at shelters to take fun, cute, Instagrammed, like pictures with a tripod even of the animals in shelters that made people want to adopt them more. And so they could post these pictures to Facebook via the app, and depending on how many likes and shares the photos got, the animals actually got certain treats and food and things like that. So it was actually like a really cool campaign. But that's way too complicated for SMS. You know, doing all that and integrating Facebook with social, with text is just, you know, too hard. But it's easy to do through this app. So again, what's the easy way to get people to download the app? SMS. People are already on their device, they just have to click that link. So that was talking about integrating our text messaging campaigns with all our already available tools. I just want to talk briefly about virality through text message. Making things go viral is huge these days, and people being able to share things is one of our biggest concerns when we're designing our campaigns. Are people going to share it? How are people going to tell others about it? And we know that that's true with SMS as well, and we want to give people the opportunity with SMS as well. So we have a couple of ways people can do this. This is a Do Something example where people can share a stat with their friends. So people are online, and this actually came from a really brief email. They click the link to share a stat with their friends about teen homelessness. If you share the stat with your friends, you have an opportunity to win a scholarship. So the user enters their first name, their cell phone numbers, their friend's cell phone numbers, and clicks submit, and the friend gets a text message that says, hey, your friend Sam at 347-786-1536 has an important stat for you about teen homelessness. Reply Y to see it. If the friend, and you have to, an important stat about teen homelessness from dosomething.org. It's important to note the name of the organization in that message. The friend clicks submit. The friend replies Y, and when they do that, they're then opted in to do something, can get the stat, and can start taking action with dosomething.org. Likewise, we can also have people do this via their phone without using the web. So thanks for signing the petition. We're working to get 100,000 signatures this week. Reply with 5 friends' numbers, and we'll ask them to sign too. You reply with friends' numbers, get a message. Thanks for doing that. Keep sending numbers, and we'll keep inviting people. And it's the same process where the friend then gets the message saying, you know, we want you to sign the petition. Reply Y for more info. So with that, we've seen higher numbers than you would expect, actually. So Mobile Commons sort of developed this tool to say, you know, we want to test this. We want to see if it works. We want to see if text messages can go viral. This is not like a great user experience because I know my mom's phone number and I know my parents' landline because I grew up in that house. But if they moved, like, I wouldn't even know their landline. And I barely know my dad's cell phone number. Oh, that is my mom's cell phone number. See, that's the only one I know. That's mine and that's my mom's. So when I was testing that, yeah. Her name's Sandy, if you want to say hi.
Great job, Sam.
We don't know anybody's phone numbers. So we were very surprised that people will actually do this. So the results that we've seen with a good ask are that about 7 or 8% of people will reply with at least one valid phone number. Not that low.
So if I texted, let's say I texted Jeremy's number, does Jeremy get a text message that says, Farrah thinks she would like this, or just a message comes that says, hey, there's a petition going on?
Right. We always note the sender so that the receiver knows that it's not spam. So this is actually not a gray area at all. It's totally allowed. It's totally CTIA, which is the governing body for the text messages, CTIA compliant, because it's in no way auto-generated or like auto-dialed or auto-texting. It's being generated by a human just through an organization shortcode. And people aren't automatically opted in. They have to reply Y. And it's also very important, just in case there's any confusion, that in that first message, reply stop to quit is in there so people know how to opt out. So yeah, the receiver will get a message that says, if we have first name in the Mobile Commons system, it'll say your friend Sam at 347-786-1536. And then you can customize the invitation to say, wants you to sign this petition, wants you to learn about Do Something, has a stat about teen homelessness, basically whatever you want, you can customize it. But Do Something has actually done the most testing around this than any other organization, and they have found that these sort of more ambiguous message, your friend Sam at this number has a message for you from dosomething.org, reply Y to receive it, gets a much higher opt-in rate than if you actually tell people what you're trying to get them to do. Maybe it's the mystery of the whole thing, and maybe teens are different than other demographics with that. We'll just have to keep testing and figure out what works best across the board.
I just had a question about the management of these communications. To what extent are these responses auto-generated, created beforehand, and to what extent are they? Is there a human being saying, awesome, keep sending us?
They're all auto-generated. They're all created beforehand, yeah. In Mobile Commons, we used to actually not have it even be customizable. It used to always say, awesome, keep sending numbers, and we'll I think it used to say great, actually. But now the organization can customize it, basically all of it. But it's all done beforehand and all part of an automated process. Oh, and I forgot to say, and then about 20% of the people who get the message will actually opt in. All right, cool. So creating a relationship. Text messaging is not unlike any other medium that we use to communicate with our subscribers. It works best when we target, it works best when we segment, it works best when we recognize the actions that people have already taken and thank them for those actions. So here's an example of a transition to saying, thanks for giving last month. The difference, oh, that's my 25 minutes. Just a warning, okay. Okay. Thanks for giving last month. The biggest difference you can make is to tell your senator to vote no. Reply with your zip to be connected. So we're asking them to make a phone call, but we've seen organizations get much better results by referencing the last thing that the user did. And our platform, and I would imagine several other platforms out there, make it very easy to segment people by those kinds of actions and create those groups and target people accordingly. There is a cute example from Do Something also where they had a pregnancy text, which is, and has anybody ever heard of Do Something's pregnancy text? It was one of like the biggest SMS campaigns ever, where they had teens text in, and the Tell a Friend was very big with this because it was like, you want to send your friend a phone baby, reply with their numbers and we'll impregnate their phone, basically. And then your phone baby texts you at like 6, and if you say, yes, I'll participate, your phone baby texts you at like 6 a.m., you know, wake up, it's time to feed me. And it takes the user through this experience all day of what it's like to have a baby, because Do Something has done a great job of figuring out stats like you are less likely to go to college or you will make X percentage more money in your life do not really hit home with teenagers. But knowing that they have to get up really early, that they're not going to fit in their prom dress, that they can't go to soccer practice, those real life, real instance things are the kinds of things that sort of make teenagers change their behavior. So anyway, it's a hugely successful campaign, has grown their list so much, especially through the Tell a Friend. But they did that campaign, and then their next campaign is I Heart Dad, which is a campaign to encourage your dad to get his blood pressure checked. Because they work predominantly, their mobile subscribers are predominantly in Latino communities where they really want to work to get teenagers fighting the diabetes epidemic in those communities. So the text message about I Heart Dad was like, goo goo gaga, thanks for participating in pregnancy text. Now it's time for another campaign, this time about dad. Reply dad if you want to do our next campaign. And they didn't even really tell the user what the next campaign was about, but that text message got a lot higher response rate than saying, hey, it's time for I Heart Dad. We're going to encourage you know, your dad to get his blood pressure checked. So that transition was very important. It's also just acknowledging that, hey, when you do stuff, we recognize it, and we appreciate it, and we need it. All right, another way we can create a relationship is by targeting and segmenting. And this goes back, we can sort of highlight those past actions and those transitions, but just also knowing what people are interested in and what kind of information they want from us. And the reason I have some questions up here is because if you don't know what people want from you, if you don't know what they're most interested in, text messaging is a really, really, really good way to ask. These kind of questions, multiple choice questions, get the highest response rate of any other text messages that people send. It's quick, it's easy, people like doing these surveys over text. This World Wildlife Fund text, we want to know how many texts you'd like to receive from us per month, had the highest response rate of any text message they've ever gotten. It's helped decrease their opt-out rates because they're targeting people at a level that they wanted to be targeted at. So create a relationship by taking the data about your users and segmenting with that data. And if there's anything that you want to know that you don't know, just ask and people will answer you. All right, and then customized responses as well. So we have the ability within Mobile Commons to actually send people some customized responses based on how they answer previous questions. And this is really integral in getting people to take the action that makes the most sense for them to take. And a really good example of that is voting. So happy National Voter Registration Day. Are you registered? Reply yes, no, not sure, can't vote. Obviously, we have a very, very, very different ask for people who aren't registered than we do for basically anyone else. But if we just send out a blanket text message telling people to register to vote, that's kind of a wasted text message for everyone who's already registered, right? So we can send out a multiple choice question like this. The response rates are extremely high. People will answer over 50%, and usually much higher than that actually. With the multiple choice. People can respond, yes, I'm registered. Are you sure? If you've moved, you need to re-register. If I haven't registered, we want people to register right from their phones or online. So when you're thinking about organizational goals, objectives, what do we need people to do? Whatever that is, we got to get people the right information, the information that makes the most sense to them. Just another quick example of this. We work with a lot of New York City government agencies. The Department of Health ran a campaign that encouraged young men to get ID cards because if you get stopped or taken in and you don't have a government-issued ID, one is created for you in the criminal justice system. So very bad deal. So we want to encourage young men in New York to actually have a non-driving government ID card. But depending on the resources that young man has and where they live, the ask is very different. So what the Department of Health did was tell people to text ID to 877-877, and then they asked people, are you over 18? Yes or no? People replied, okay, great. You need your birth certificate and social security card. Do you have those two documents? Yes or no? And then based on people's responses, they got people the exact right information that they needed to actually get their ID card. So like if you were under 18 and did have those documents, it was like, great, take those documents and your parent or guardian to the nearest DMV to get your ID card. And then reply with your zip code and we'll tell you where the nearest DMV is. If you were over 18 and you didn't have those, it was like, okay, here's a resource for you to actually get those documents. Click this link. It also tells you other documents that you can bring. Now you just need to go to your DMV, reply with your zip code, and we'll tell you where your nearest DMV is. The response rates to all these questions were like between 70 and 80% because people knew that they were giving the Department of Health information that would make it easier for them to get the ID card. And then we actually checked back in with people, an automated system 7 days after they opted in yet. Hey, did you get your ID card yet? And something like 29% of all the opt-ins eventually said, yes, I was able to get my ID card. And it was because we got people the information that was right for them to take action. All right, so the takeaway from this is that SMS is key to get people to take more action. We will get more opt-ins and we will get higher response rates. We can get people to take more action by creating two-way, engaging, data-driven conversations. And the way we can do that is through some of these really exciting trends that we've seen this year, which are fully integrated, viral, and relationship-based messaging. And then I just have one quick other thing that I want to highlight that's been a huge success for nonprofits this year, and that is click-to-call advocacy forms. So a huge part of what we do at Mobile Commons is advocacy. If you want to just take it to the next slide, no problem. So we can drive telephone calls to people's legislators. We can actually grow our list, and then from that bigger list that we've gotten from getting people to make phone calls, we can then ask people to take action and have those higher action rates. So Mobile Commons typically, and in the past, has generated phone calls from text messages. So like that example you saw, reply with your zip code and we'll connect you to your senator. You reply with your zip code, your phone rings, you hear audio talking points, and then you're automatically routed to the correct senator. And James will, I think, probably talk about telephone calls a little. We can ask people to opt in as a follow-up text message, and then we're growing the list. But what we've also seen is that actually putting the form right on your website reaches people who are not in your SMS universe at all yet. So having people enter their phone number, email address, and click Connect Me, check the box, sign me up for SMS alerts, or just have the details in the form that they're going to be signing up for SMS alerts. This way we're reaching everyone in our digital universe, and we're getting people to make those phone calls, and we're getting them to sign up for SMS. So we've seen huge successes around that this year, you know, with a variety of campaigns, which has been very successful and exciting. And I will actually just turn it over to James now, because I've been talking for a while. But thank you, everyone, and we can answer questions at the end.
Before we fully
Sure. In fact, a couple of the things I wanted to highlight that Sam talked about. One was on the click-to-call advocacy forms. We've seen great conversion for us in terms of deepening our relationship with our members and supporters when we're driving email advocacies. So an example would be Hawaii Marriage. So in Hawaii Marriage, we are driving thousands of people to contact their legislators over email or through traditional advocacy forms. And then what we do is while they're sending their emails, that landing page, that last landing page that they face is another mobile advocacy form. So we're driving them to not just send emails, but then convert them then to making phone calls. So we're getting double the advocacies from these people who take action. So in addition to talking, so Sam touched on the technology behind a lot of this. I'll give some examples of how HRC has tried to implement or utilize these technologies in some of our programs and efforts. The major one that I'll talk about is one of our flagship publications and resources, which is called the Buyer's Guide. It's based off of our Corporate Equality Index. Every year we rate corporations based on how they treat their LGBT workers. And then around November we take that data and we release a document as a buyer's guide leading into the holiday season for people to look up what businesses they want to support based on how they treat their LGBT workers. So the next one actually, and the next one. So HRC, if you don't know, HRC is the nation's largest civil rights organization working for LGBT equality. Some more information about us, our mission statement. You may have seen us, of course, in the last 6 months as we led into the Supreme Court oral arguments and decision when the internet basically went red, thanks to so many engaged supporters of equality who wanted to show their support for marriage equality and repeal of DOMA and Prop 8. And the next one after this. Actually, we can skip this too. Our list on mobile, just so you know, has grown tremendously from when we first started years ago. We initially started with our mobile advocacy list really being what I would say our most engaged users. Everyone from our board and steering committee, our national kind of like leadership, to our everyday supporters, so people who may not even give money to HRC but are consistent action takers. And we've seen this in examples like our texting for the mobile buyer's guide. So what we saw was that we've had over 500,000 people download this resource year after year. It's often the most downloaded free app in the iTunes store. And we wanted to make it a more living document, something that people just didn't have to have whether they download the resource or requested a printed guide, but that whether in a store or whether they're shopping or in a mall or seeing a commercial on TV, they could text shop to 3644. In fact, you can do that now. And then they reply with a name of a business or corporation. And we tell you whether they participate in the Corporate Equality Index, and we have a score for them, or other information about how we can get them to engage with LGBT equality. So some of the data that kind of is behind this is, the LGBT community, not including our supporters, represents over $712 billion in terms of consumer spending power. And market research also shows that this audience has a high propensity in terms of wanting to support companies and corporations that support this community. In one survey, it was 78%. That's the next one. So we have a really high informed consumer base in the LGBT community. Some of the ways we rate these companies, 80 to 100 are our high scores, 46 to 79 are our mid-range, and 0 to 45, that includes non-responders, or businesses that either obviously don't support LGBT equality, but also don't support any protections for their workers. So some examples of some featured comparisons in this past year's survey. Starbucks scores at a 90, Caribou Coffee scores at 15. You can look at those other ones. And then some of our higher scores, 100%, at 100%, get a seal where often you might even see on their websites or at the entrances to some of their stores, especially in major metropolitan areas, you'll see a seal from HRC where that claims that they're a best place to work based off of how they rate on the Corporate Equality Index. So the steps, this is the kind of layout of the user flow for our supporters who text shop to 3644 or buy. They're prompted to give us a name of a business. We release the score. And actually, in full disclosure, I'll tell you the ways that I think that we can improve this now that we've had some great progress with the product in Mobile Commons. Also, whenever Sam does these presentations, I always hear like really great ways of how in the industry we've improved these kind of resources. So at the end of these slides, I'll show you how I think that this can be even better. So I think I mentioned this, but I'll go over it on the next slide a little bit more. Our iPhone app is one of the top apps in the iTunes Store every November. We get over 2,000 requests for the printed guides, and over 500,000 people visit the site to download, and we actually are able to track conversions on downloads of the resource. And then over the span of the first 3 to 4 months of this resource being live from November, we had over 42,000. That grows every time we do another promotion or tell our members more about the resource. Or when companies are in the news. So for example, today, Apple with iOS 7, we promoted to our list that, you may know that, that you may be downloading iOS 7 or having difficulty with it, but you should know that they also score 100% on the Corporate Equality Index. Here's where you can search other companies. Go ahead. So over 10,000 users are active in terms of using this tool in this past year, and over 41,000 text message queries came in for these scores. This is actually a look at the back end of some of the top requests that we've gotten for companies. You may have remember Target and Best Buy a few years ago, although they score really high on how they treat their LGBT workers, they also donated to really anti-LGBT candidates. So our members are aware of that, and every year they still are trying to ensure that they're either getting a high score or how much they're dinged based off of how they treat their workers. And Walmart still gets a lot of hits every month, and they're going to get a new score refresh, obviously, because now they extended benefits to their LGBT workers this past month. So ways that I think that we can improve this, Sam talked a lot about the tell-a-friend feature and how you can really engage and grow your list from peer to peer. That's something that we really should maximize in the buyer's guide mobile version that we don't currently do. And then also we don't have a really dynamic way yet that we haven't implemented on how to get people who are interested and engaged in learning about the CEI and scores to take action further. So we'd like to find a way to make it easy and seamless for people who are checking Target or checking Walmart score, and if they don't have a good score, how they can contact those corporations to improve their standing. And then also a more seamless way for us to engage with our list in terms of sharing that content, both in Tell-a-Friend but also in social networks. So that's our mobile buyer's guide. Two of the other things I'll touch on quickly that are no longer active but are also good examples of what Sam talked about with engaging a list and keeping them active were our presidential debate quiz that we did last year. And then also, although it's years now, it seems so long ago, we had this really fantastic opportunity after New York passed marriage, one of the first states to have a victory of that kind. We did a mobile text engagement where we asked people to text in their message of congratulations, and then we populated it on a map. So I'll talk a little bit about that. The presidential debate quiz on the next slide was a really great opportunity for us to enter into a national dialogue when all of our members and supporters, whether they're at an HRC event watching the presidential debates or just watching at home, for them to learn more about LGBT history and politics and the issues, whether or not they were on the screen or not. So we built out this this contest quiz, where people were able to take the quiz during the debate, and we gave away prizes. Next slide. And it shows us our engagement factors. Over 12,000 people participated in the quiz. We had a 10% response rate for where we were in terms of our list. And the next.
James, did you promote people texting in also to take the quiz? Was it a growth tool or just an engagement tool?
Yeah, so leading up to it, we tried to build up a cachet of people who opted in from our promotions on social media and on email, and then we actually blasted a message to the entire list, whether or not they had opted in to the quiz, to see if they were interested. So that's actually a good example of what other people, do something other people do is they will send a large message to the entire audience, even though people might not be interested, and then get people to deepen their engagement by their response. And then the New York marriage map was just unprecedented for us. We had a 25% response rate in terms of people responding or opting in and wanting to send their congratulations. And that's something we replicated in other states as they continue to pass marriage equality, and we built up this. This was actually completely covered with people wanting to give a response. And it built our list in places because we built up this competitive energy of we have no one in North Dakota who wanted to take action. And so it was able for us to see and be accountable to our members and supporters, but also for us to visualize what a great community of supporters we have across the country. So that's it. Another thing that we do is that if you can text N10 or our hashtag for this session, and you can get a free HRC sticker when you fill out the form. And when you see it, you'll see that we need to make it mobile optimized. Virtually all of ours, with the exception of this survey, all of our actions that we drive people to, I mean, that's I totally broke it with this form, but are mobile optimized. And we're continuing to find ways to improve. In fact, now Mobile Commons, and we're also a Convio client, we're able to take data that's already saved in people's Convio profiles. And so when they go to take action through Mobile Commons, previously, you would have to fill it out again. We're able to push that data now from Convio profiles right into an action form that we direct people from Mobile Commons. So that's amazing. And I also see a lot of other clients who use Mobile Commons just say, tell people what the action is and just reply why. And I've seen they've had great responses from making things seamless, easily, and timely. Yeah.
I have a question. So I have been subscribed to 30644,
yeah.
your short code in your list, and I'm just looking. It looks like you've sent out since January about once a month-ish
That's
a
a great
text message,
question.
often about alerts or breaking news, particularly with the Supreme Court decision.
Mm-hmm.
And then in that stream of, let's say maybe there's a dozen or so messages, there is a fundraising request, about a matching gift campaign, it looks like, from the summer. And I'm just curious, is it 1 out of every 10 messages?
Mm-hmm.
You ask for donations, how much are you actually getting people to give?
Yeah.
What they've typically been getting from you news and alerts? How is the fundraising piece working on this?
So we've utilized really our mobile action network as, for the most part, mobile advocacy. So either we're telling them breaking news or we're asking them to take action at a critical moment. And we send about 2 to 3 messages a year that are strictly fundraising. And they were wrapped into our larger campaign. So the one you may have gotten was our matching gift campaign. And we also try and personalize those. It may not have been in this campaign, but we try and personalize it, especially around where your location is. So if we know your location and we need 10 more members in New York, we're able to say that based off of either their constituent profile or their zip code or area code.
And how successful do you find that? Did you do better with mobile fundraising when it first came out? It was kind of the hot new shiny toy, and everyone donated to the Red Cross after Haiti and text fundraising. Or are you still? Is it still kind of growing for you, or what's?
Yeah, we're I think unique, but also probably not unique for this room in the sense that we're C4 mostly in our fundraising, and so we don't. Our monthly giving is not. We're not eligible for it like most nonprofits. So what we've seen in our testing is that people may not be giving immediately from their text message, but what they're doing is they're responding to our email campaign. So they're knowing that, so they got their email in the morning, and then the reminder is the text message they get from us in the afternoon, and then they go back to their email and give there. But they also have the opportunity in every text message to go to a mobile optimized donation form and give. But it's an interesting environment that our users utilize in terms of how they engage and relate with us. And that's something we're always testing.
Questions for Sam or James? You have questions about how this works? Come on.
I have a question. All right. I just need to say, I just talked to fundraiser. What about maybe more event marketing? Someone wanted to sell tickets.
Yeah, absolutely.
That worked for you.
You want to stand up? Just
your first name, last name, and email, and we'll have a name tag for you at the door. You know, because you can export. James can talk about this a little more too, but in mobile comments, it basically functions like an SMS CRM. So everything that people text in, you can save on their mobile comments profile. So if you ask people to reply with their first name and last name for an event, you can export that to CSV and have our list of attendees for that event.
I'd say that we also use our text messaging for like engagement at the event. So whether it's a raise the paddle at the event, like if we're doing an ask and it's at a federal club event, often we'll do a text here rather than filling out this palm card if you want more information or you're not able to give now. So we utilize it a lot as like a last-ditch effort to ensure that we capture someone's information at an event. Does that answer your question?
If you're asking them to provide their first and last name when you text, does that mean you don't know who you're texting?
Yeah, I mean, it can, yeah.
So you're getting their phone number from what kind of a pool?
Oh, it's all opt-in.
Okay. So I guess I'm
When
missing
people
something.
will opt in by just texting a short code to a keyword, and so initially when people opt in, you'll only have their mobile number.
Right.
You won't have any other.
Okay, because it doesn't appear together.
It could sync if you, often it wouldn't just be your cell phone number that we'd capture in that first conversation. Often we capture either your email or name. We'd request that, or often zip code. So then we're able to match that. For us, we match that with people's Convio profiles. So if I was already a member and supporter, and HRC had my email address, and then I opted in via text, the vast majority of our people actually opt in via web forms. So every single action, every single message that we send, we always offer an opportunity for someone to provide their mobile text to join our mobile action network, and then we put them in a stream. But for people who come to it just via the text, we have to ensure that we deepen our relationship to match that information.
A while ago, people, if they actually ask for a phone number on a direct mail reply envelope, on an information form, on a donation form on a website, and any sort of information cap event sign up, it might say phone. Sometimes now you see phone and cell phone or mobile phone. Have you guys just gone to, with this sort of, most people all get rid of their landlines, are you just asking for cell phone, or are you just asking, so how are you sort of building a list?
I would suggest, I mean, for us, what we've tested, what we've been able to see is that when someone provides their mobile number, so when we prefer, on our membership forms, you'll see mobile phone first, and then other phones that we'll take any number you give us. But if someone gives us their mobile phone, they often are better prospects on telemarketing. They're better prospects. They're often already existing members or deeper action takers. So for us, it's also a really great barometer in our environment to see, like, if someone's giving us their mobile number, they often are really close to HRC, or they really care about the issue.
So within let's say the Convio form, are you indicating that they're automatically being opted in?
Yeah, we have to do that everywhere, yeah.
I just said public
Sorry.
Sort of in the same vein. So if you're doing an ad campaign which says text stop to whatever, all you're capturing is the phone number, right?
Right.
And then, of course, you can then try and contact those people and get them to give you more information,
Yeah.
so you have more of a list. But I guess what I'm wondering is, typically, what percentage of a list is just the phone number? And also, so I guess a related question, you could have people who come into you through email,
Yeah.
and you may have their phone number and not know it's the same person. You wouldn't necessarily know if you don't have a name
Right.
to link it, or given the anomalies in names and all that.
Well, James can talk about their list specifically, but it totally depends on how diligent you are about asking for email address. We found that if people text a keyword to the short code, text join to 12345 to sign up, the user does that, they get a text message that says, thank you for signing up. Now reply with your email address to finish signing up. Response rates can be as high as 80% for
But that's somebody
email
signing up.
version.
If it's, tell your senator to vote no.
Sure.
Vote no, text no.
Yep.
That's all you're asking them to join. You're just asking them to act. and they've acted.
But by acting, they're joining. So tell your senator, it's like, what are they doing when they text no? Is it a petition? Is it a phone call? You know, the most important thing that we want people to do is text no to 12345 to tell their senator no. And then when we do that, we ask for their zip code so that they're auto-routed to the right senator. That's the most important thing. And we can follow up and ask for an email. It just depends on what your priorities are. Do you know of your mobile list how many people you have emails for?
The majority, because we have a very high threshold in terms of asking people to take action or respond to something. So if they're going to engage with us or take an action, we actually do require most of those fields so that we can ensure that we have good data integrity, so that we know who you are and we can treat you the way that you engage with us, treat you at the level.
But you don't know about other organizations and other experiences.
I would say it's vastly different for every organization.
Because a lot of organizations only want to drive, like I'm on 6 different immigration text message groups, subscribers, and they are only going to drive for the next 6 months phone calls. And so they're not investing in a lot of the lists that I subscribe to. They're not investing in ensuring that they have a fuller picture of who I am. So that's often a strategy thing, but the best practices are always to make sure that you're capturing information instantly, because then you can have it for the long haul. Because you can't always afford to text message or invest in different things. For us, like it's been very important for us to use text messaging. We often use it as like the cavalry has arrived. Like we need to do this last thing. We need you here. We need 6 donors here, or we need 17 more calls to go to this representative in your state.
Applied the issue of cost there, which hasn't been addressed yet.
With our platform?
Okay.
What was the question? What's the question?
About cost in general. Cost in general.
Well, the implication of what he said is that that you save it because there's a cost, there's a higher cost than email, I assume.
Oh yes, it's a higher cost than emailing. It's a much higher return than email as well. But it's all part of a multi-channel approach. So our platform varies by the size of the organization and the volume, basically.
What's the cost? I was interested when you said that sometimes texting increases the likelihood of people taking action via email for donate campaigns. And I was wondering if that has to do with the cost of donating via text. And so I sort of got the file on that shortly after Haiti. Has that gone down? Have phone companies taken action to drive that cost down for people to donate via text?
It only costs the user the amount they want to donate. It only costs the user $10 to donate via text if you want to donate $10. Everything
The organization, though.
There is still a cost to the organization. I'm not sure if it's cheaper than it was supposed to be. But none of the things we talked about tonight were in reference to text to give. They were all either driving people to an email, driving people to a website, or clicking on a link in a text message to go to a mobile optimized donation form.
Say that, and for us specifically, because we're C4, we're not eligible for that text to give campaign. And actually, I think I prefer that as well, because we do all the transactions through our traditional form, as in a mobile optimized donation form where you tell us how much you're going to give to us now or monthly. We get to keep that information. How it's currently structured for C3s that use text to give campaign, it's often people will text Haiti to the American Red Cross. Often the American Red Cross doesn't get that information about the user. They often don't have control. It's cumbersome and difficult, and I, as an end user, as a personal consumer, I don't like things showing up on my cell phone bill. I'd rather know how much I pay. So because we've had to, I think it's actually improved our conversion and our relationship with people, being able to drive them to an actual donation form rather than an invisible, I just texted and opted in for 10 months. Yeah.
This has been a great talk. I've learned a lot. I did have one question about the integration. You said it's sort of a standalone CRM, and you mentioned some integration with Convio. So is that a bi-directional interface with sort of a core set of demographic data, or is it different flavors for different organizations?
Yeah, so
It's customized.
yeah, it's customizable. So yeah, Mobile Commons is its own CRM for text messaging, but But you wouldn't want to rely on it as your own CRM. We do, and a lot of the SMS companies out there will integrate with CRM. So a user texts in a keyword to a short code, text join to 12345. Thanks for joining. What's your email address? sam@mobilecommons.com, and then it puts me in Convio or finds me in Convio and adds that I am also in Mobile Commons. And Convio, if they give their number on the form, then they get a text message confirmation right away. Thanks for joining on the web. We'll text you updates once a month or whatever.
Okay, and then are you able to sort of follow? Are you able to leverage then data in your primary CRM to execute queries that you can carry out through the mobile platform?
Yeah, in fact, often, sometimes we have a separate database with a range of information where we do a lot of overlays and profiling and data for targeting. So sometimes we'll even pull that, we'll do all that complex targeting offline in our not offline, but our database, and then upload that into mobile and match that data to utilize our traditional forms internally of setting up targeting and messaging, but maximizing the tools that we have available to us, if that makes sense.
We have 5 more minutes, so a few more questions.
Have you done anything, any of your clients, or have you worked any at all in Spanish?
Yes.
Okay, so can you talk a little bit about that? Are you seeing the same kind of adoption rates?
Higher, much higher.
Early adapters, we love them. So, okay, so can you just talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So our biggest client that is utilizing mobile in Spanish is Reform Immigration for America. Most of their list is Spanish speaking. The best way to sort of designate between your Spanish speaking list and your English speaking list is just to have different keywords for Spanish and English, so they're totally separated. The biggest question that people have for me about SMS in Spanish is, what about Spanish characters? Mobile Commons does not support Spanish characters because all phones don't support Spanish characters. We also don't support emojis and things like that because not all phones do. So in Mobile Commons, you can only write text messages with characters that all phones support, so that you're sort of writing those more ubiquitous messages. It has not proven to be a problem at all for our clients that are utilizing Spanish messaging. But everything is higher. Opt-in rates are higher, phone call rates are higher, response rates are higher.
Just continuing on that, if you did include the tildes and the accents in the Spanish messages, would iPhones accept them with those marks? And then the other phones, what would the other phones do?
iPhones do support that. I mean, some Spanish phones do support that. It's just every character and every device is different. So,
But I guess what I'm asking is, would you be running a risk that something weird would happen, like with an emoji, something weird happens?
There would likely be a
Weird
box
nasty
or weird things like that. And then it can also on phones that don't support those kinds of characters, it can actually take up like 90 characters instead of one, so the text message is split into like a bunch of different text messages. It's just
I think one of the cooler things that I saw in the examples that Sam had too, which is I think goes with any channel, but like dead-end text messages, so just autoresponders that don't either ask for prompt another deeper engagement or another message or conversation or linking you to somewhere else is like, I think that's the biggest takeaway, I think, from a lot of your clients and the examples that you had is every opportunity you have in any form, but specifically in this, don't leave it as a dead end. Always find a way to keep the conversation going.
Is there any further detailed information you can collect from a text message received that isn't actually text from the text message itself, like network or location or whatever?
Yes. So a couple of examples that we can garner from a text relationship when someone opts in is what cell phone carrier they're using. It's not always the best barometer, but you can also utilize someone's area code to mark where they are. We don't always use that.
Yeah.
But when we first started, we certainly did because we were grasping at any information we could.
That will be the zip code for where the message was sent from, or the biller's address?
Bill's address, yeah.
So So it's good to actually ask people their zip code because that's not super accurate for us anymore.
And then some of the links, for example, the one that Sam described of like if you're sending out a text message asking people to use an app or download an app, like that actual text is optimized in a way that what smartphone they're using, they'll be driven to the actual resource where they need to download it.
If you're able to take a zip code from a bill, why couldn't you access the name?
It's not zip code from the bill, it's area code.
But we ask for it. We ask for it every opportunity we can. In fact, sometimes when we're doing larger text message, if we don't have someone's name or email address, that's the first thing we ask, or that's the reply. We'll target it based off of, we'll sparse out those people so that we can ensure that we get better data.
So thank you.